Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Luke Mickelson on the line, and he is founder of Sleep in Heavenly Peace. Luke, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. It's good to be here.
All right, Luke. So I'm excited to get into today's topic. So we're going to get into Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And what a title. First off, where did you come up with that name? I read it the first time and I'm like, come on, man. It's a call to action and it's a brand. I mean, there's layers. Where'd that come from?
Heck yeah. And you nailed it on the head. Call to action. It's funny when we started this, it was just a family Christmas project. I mean, I remember when I delivered the first bed, I found out that, child bedlessness actually was bigger than I thought. Because when I built my second bed with my kids, I didn't know what to do with it. Like it wasn't like I knew that there was all these kids sleeping on the floor. I just knew of one, and we had delivered a bed to this family, and I wanted to do it for my own family. So we built this bed. Didn't know what to do with it, and it was recommended to me, hey, why don't you just throw it on Facebook, some buy sell trade Facebook group? And that's always kind of scary because you put something free out there, you just don't know what you're going to get. And
true.
And anyways, I remember we did that, and we got a lot of. I can tell a story in a minute, but we got a lot of inquiries. And I remember my wife's like, well, we have to call it something. And I said, don't worry, I got the best name, Beds for Babes. We got it. And she looked at me and she said,
Stop.
No.
That was I'm glad that you're married and that you have a...
no, we're not calling it that.
We're calling that your actual better half. Executive decision. Go ahead.
And it was like not a good Google search, by the way.
Oh, man.
So yeah, and it was Christmas time, right? And who doesn't love Silent Night? And Sleep in Heavenly Peace it really emanated what we wanted these kids to do, is just sleep in peace. And it was funny, I ran into Rob Schneider, Rob Schneider, the actor, and he was really interested in what we do. And I remember he texted me back later. He says, Luke, Sleep in Heavenly Peace, that sounds like a funeral home. And so it's been fun. It emanates what we want these kids to be doing when we leave the home after we drop off their bed. Yeah.
What does it entail to make a bed? I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't know how to make a bed. What does that mean? Like, I'm just saying, I don't like what. To make a bed means I go to IKEA and I do I don't know. I'm looking at the bed I'm looking at now. There's some screws there. What does it mean to make a bed?
That's one of the beautiful parts about Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And when you say call to action, that's really what we want. This is a community problem, and we want the community to be involved. Well, I knew when I first started this, I knew my way around a saw and a drill. It wasn't like I was a full-fledged carpenter. In fact, I wouldn't call me a woodworker. I'd probably disgrace the name of those guys that know what they're doing. But I knew how to build stuff, and I had never built a piece of furniture before. But when I found out about this family that had kids sleeping on the floor, I thought, and at the time, I was what was called a young men's president. So in my church group, I was over the spiritual growth as well as the activity, the weekly activity for this young men's program, boys about 12 through 18. Well, I don't know with you, when you're trying to find a fun activity for these teenagers to do nowadays, if it doesn't involve a screen, good luck. It's just difficult. And here I was hearing about this family that had kids sleeping on the floor, and the thought came to me what a great opportunity to take an Xbox controller out of these boys' hands and let's put a drill and a sander in it. Let's teach them something, right? And not only teach them something fun to do, but obviously for a great cause. And what I found when we did that, it was quite amazing. These kids just loved to do it. I like to think it was because they knew where it was going, but who doesn't love messing around with wood and drills and putting stuff together? And the activity of putting it together was just as fun. Well, maybe not just as fun, but it was a lot of fun as delivering the bed too. But I knew, these are 12-year-old, 13-year-old kids. I got to make this as kind of simple as possible. And by doing so, we created this platform where people anywhere, maybe have never touched a drill in their life, can now we take raw lumber, like straight 2x4s, 1x4s. We take raw lumber, and at the end of the day, 3-4 hours later, some volunteers have never touched a drill before have now created a bed, and it's super fun.
How many beds have you made to date or distributed? How do I say that? How many beds you play? How many heads are in beds? I'm trying to rhyme stuff too now.
That's right.
Come on.
Well, we kind of, we started in 2012, and just like I think a lot of nonprofits or a lot of organizations, you kind of have this slow roll, if you will. But in 2018, we had kind of our big, let's call it a break. Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs Mike Rowe, he's a stud. He was hosting this Facebook Watch program called Returning the Favor. And they'd travel across the country and they'd highlight what they called do-gooders, and then they would give them something. Well, when he came to Idaho, where I live, he highlighted me, our organization, and gave us a warehouse free of space. And when that hit in February of 2018, it was a megaphone. We were viewed by like 10 million people. And we went from about 7 chapters that we had to, in 1 year, we went to 150. I mean, we just blew up.
Wow.
And since then, we've built we're coming on 300,000 beds that we've built. And we built,
man, that's a lot of heads in beds.
It is. And we build now, our goal this year is going to be close to 90,000 beds this year. We just grow exponentially.
Wow. And so just to circle back to the need, when somebody thinks that maybe listening to this thinks about, there's a need, like obviously. So that's, we're talking about beds, a physical product, and, I'm kind of saying tongue in cheek heads in beds, right? But that head would be maybe on the floor or maybe piled up, or who knows what that living or sleeping condition could be like without those beds. They're obviously going somewhere, somebody's sleeping in them. So those numbers are significant. Like that's huge.
Absolutely. Well, the sad thing is number one, the sad thing is there's even a need out there. There's even a need for sleeping having peace. We hate to even think about that. But when I started this, I certainly felt like there's other charities that do what we do. And there wasn't. I found one charity in North Carolina, this is back in 2012, that provided beds for kids. No one else. There was like little church groups here and there that would have an activity, but no one really was diving into it. And so we got together, me and some friends got together and said, you know what? We're going to build beds. That's all we're going to do. We're going to build and deliver beds, this twin-size bed, and we want to really be the best at it, or at least provide the most. And so that's what we've done. Child bedlessness may not be a real word, but it's a real problem, and it represents greater than 3% of the total population. That's our numbers. There's no statistics anywhere other than what we've come up with as an organization, and that's kind of rough numbers when you look at how many applications we've received in the population of a town. And we know it's greater than that because not everybody has heard of Sleep in Heavenly Peace, especially in big metropolitan areas. Some areas we know it's much greater than 3%. And so when you sit at home, for your listeners, if you're in a population, math is easy, 100,000 people in your population, there are literally 3,000 kids. And I'll tell you the conditions, Adam. These kids, some of them, if they're lucky, get to share a bed with a sibling, share a bed with their parents, maybe sleep on a couch, maybe even have an air mattress, which we all know deflates every night. Those are the lucky ones. There's many times, my first experience, I call it my Haley experience. I walked into a house of a mom and daughter. Haley was 6 years old, never slept on a bed, ever. Slept in the backseat of her mom's car. They were homeless. They just got out of homeless, was getting her life back together, got this government-assisted house, if you will. But little Haley, she slept on her clothes. I walked into her room, and in the corner was a nest of clothes, and that's what she slept on. And that is not an uncommon situation that these kids, even teenagers, have never slept on a bed.
Yeah, and so when the listeners hear that, we know it's a thing. Like maybe some people listening grew up with privilege or other things, and even having a bed is obviously a privilege, right?
Right. Oh, well, and a bed should never be a luxury for a child, And when I tell people what we do, at first anyways, I get 2 reactions. First of it's like, well, it's really not that big, right? There's not a lot of kids. And I just say, oh, absolutely. It's right next door, And the next thing they say, well, it's not in my town. And I live in a fairly, not a poor community of Orr County in Idaho. Magic Valley is a fairly rich, agricultural rich type of community. But we've been here since 2012, and we still, and a population of less than 100,000 people, we still get an application about every other day. And an application is 2.2 kids. So the need is absolutely real. And the sad thing is, Adam, and I appreciate having me on, because the hardest thing we're doing right now is raising awareness about this really is a major need. Not only is a major need, major problem in America, but it's one that not very many organizations or not very many resources solve this need. And that's why our mission statement is no kid sleeps on the floor in our town. And we want our town to be everybody's town. And we take that very seriously because there's just not very many resources available to solve this need.
Wow. You mentioned the word chapters earlier. I want to circle back to that. Like, how does this work?
You bet. So let's keep in mind, Adam, I'm a farm kid from Idaho, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm proud of that. I didn't grow up in the nonprofit world. I grew up with kind of an entrepreneurial mind. Like, I've started many businesses, sold them, and I just enjoyed that. But in starting this charity, whatever that meant back in the day, I didn't even know really how charities work. What I did know is I didn't want to be one of these charities that people donate their money to. It goes to some pie in the sky. You have no idea where it goes to. You know, your money as you donate in my community in some charities go clear across the country, right? I wanted the money that you donate or someone donates to stay in the community and help the kids in their community locally, because we feel like this is a community problem and things are only going to be solved by the community. And so when we had friends and family see what we were doing on Facebook and were interested in seeing how they could do it in their own hometown, we developed this, what we call an NCR, a new chapter request, which turns into a chapter. These people can go to our website, they can apply to become a chapter, and then through our online onboarding and training process, people can become a chapter. And chapters are men and women. They're not paid. They have what we call a core team around them. They look for money. They build beds, they deliver beds, they operate under the same EIN number. So we're one big overall charity. But the beauty of your question, the beauty that I want to get across is you live in, I don't care what town you live in. If you find a chapter close to you and you donate money to that chapter, that money stays in that chapter. The only way, and we're proud of this, the only way we finance, let's call it the overhead of Sleep in Emily Peace, is we pull 10% from every donation. That's it. So 90% of your dollar, 90 cents of your dollar stays in the community. Those beds that we build stay in the community that person donated in, and we love that.
Wow, what an amazing story. And I just have to ask, because I feel like this is definitely going to be a thing. Geography-wise, are you targeting any geographies versus others? Is it wherever somebody wants to get involved? Like, I mean, where are you guys at? Like, give me a little bit of a feel for the footprint. I have the idea of, over 300,000, which that's significant. And obviously there's much more work to be done. But talk to me about the footprint.
Great question. So we've trained over 400 chapters nationwide, right, since 2018. And some of those closed down because chapters moved. We have about 350 that are completely active chapters, building beds and delivering all the time. And it's really funny. We're scattered all across the country. I'd say 70% or more of our chapters are on the East Coast, mostly because of population. And usually what happens is a chapter starts somewhere in a city, and then just organically it has grown to cover the state. Wisconsin, Florida, these are great examples of where we had one guy started in, I think the first one was in Portage, Wisconsin, and now there's 20 plus chapters all over Wisconsin. They see it on the radio or they come to a build and then go back home and realize there's not a chapter there, so they want to start one. And so we're starting to find large cities, Miami, New York, San Francisco, some of these large cities that we don't have chapters in, and probably could use 10 chapters in there based on the population. We're trying to target those, but we really feel, and we grow at the tune of about 50 chapters a year, which,
wow.
We don't want to grow too fast because we want to be able to manage and support these chapter presidents, but we also want to grow as fast as we can, and especially reach those cities, those big metropolitan cities that we know there's kids that are in desperate need, right? It's just, we don't pay these people. These are usually retired people that want to give back to the community. They're always looking for things to do. And I'll tell you this, Adam, there's many times I've talked to people, retired couples that have donated their time to many different organizations, and they've come back to me countless times. I've had situations where they've come back and said, Luke, I've donated a lot of time. I've spent a lot of time on other charities. This is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. And passion is affects people in different ways, and not everybody has the same passion, and that's great. We don't all try to solve the same problem. But I will say the beauty of what we do is we involve the community, and we want the community to be involved. And being a chapter president, you just become this person that manages and provides opportunities for your local town, your local neighbors to come in and, number one, learn about child bedlessness, learn the problem, and then learn how to solve it and be a part of that solution.
How do you spread the word out to get applicants that need the bed? I'm curious about that piece.
It's a great question. For example, what we're doing right now, I hope people now take an opportunity to be aware that this is an issue. A lot of teachers and school counselors know what we're talking about. A lot of first responders, firefighters, police officers that go into these homes and see the conditions that these kids live in. We deal with and work with a lot of other service organizations, FS, Child Support Services, Transitioning Homelessness, and foster care. We're sponsored by Jockey, who's our national foster care sponsor. We deal with a lot of these organizations that know these kids, know the situations they're in, and some of those are the saddest ones, these kids that are in the foster care program. These families, I had a great story where this couple, or rather this brother and sister, 6 and 7 years old, the parents were not in the picture. I don't know why, but they weren't in the picture. The grandparents lived back east. They couldn't handle them. The only people they knew were each other. And they went to a family, and the family didn't have enough beds. The judge literally gave them 24 hours to find a bed, or else these two kids are going to be separated. It's hard to talk about. I cry every time. We had a bed into the home the next day. And those are the situations that we provide. And I tell people, Adam, it's far more than just a bed. It's a confidence. It's keeping families together. It's having these kids feel ownership of something that is theirs. I had a friend of mine say, "Oh, you call it SHP? That's funny, because me and my sister growing up, we called it our secret hiding place, which is SHP." And I thought, oh my gosh, that is beautiful. How many times these kids need to get away and escape from their problems, and they go to their bed, which is their comfort zone. And if you don't have one, I had Mike Rowe in his podcast once. He said, "Luke," he said, "it's interesting. When I first thought about this, there's a bedroom. We're going to the kid's bedroom. But if he doesn't have a bed in it, then it's just a room." And when you stop and think about that, that's true. It's just a room. The kid might as well be in the bathroom or be in the kitchen or be in the living room. He doesn't have a bed. It's not his. And it really has a lot of meaning. And it provides a lot of solutions for these kids that need a leg up.
Yeah. Luke, how do people get involved? Like, what does the organization need? How do people follow up? How do they get involved?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. shpbeds.org is our website. SHP, Sam, Harry, Paul, beds, plural.org. You can go there, and there's a bunch of ways to help. Number one, raise awareness. You're listening to your podcast. Adam, thanks for keeping us on or having us come on. Those are listening right now. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Find out how big and bad child bedlessness is in your own home. Let people know about it. And let them know about Sleep in Emily Peace, how we can help together solve that. Number two, find a chapter close to you. They're always, chapter presidents and core teams are always looking for those people that want to maybe spend an hour a week delivering beds. I promise you, it will change your life. To talk about it, to even see videos and hear stories about delivering bed to a child is one thing. But until you actually go into the room and assemble a bed and see this little 5, 6-year-old kid over here hiding behind his mom because this stranger's in his room, and watch his demeanor just change from scared apprehension to appreciation. My first delivery, Adam, I had this little girl that hugged and kissed her bed. I'd never seen a child kiss a bed before. And those are the experiences you can talk about, but until you're in the room, you just don't get that feel. And so find a chapter, donate or offer to help, be involved there. Of course, donations, we're a nonprofit. That's how we finance this thing. Our beds cost $300. It's bed, mattress, sheets, pillows, the delivery of the bed. It's the whole 9 yards. And we do it for $300. So you can donate a mattress. Everything's brand new, right? So you can donate the cost for a mattress or the cost for a bed. We have a program called the Bunkhead Club where you can go in, become a bunkhead, and donate money to your chapter on a monthly basis, be a part of that program. So it's really just how can we help these kids in your local community, and get involved. And the last thing is if you don't have a chapter in your community, you can sign up to become a chapter president. And we make it as simple as possible, but it takes a unique individual with some drive that really wants to solve this problem and help out their communities. And those are probably the 3 biggest things that we certainly are looking for help with.
Amazing. And for everybody listening, just so you know, we'll definitely put the website in the show notes so you can just click on the link and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. Each and every day we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way in your journey as well. So again, hit that subscribe or follow button. And Luke, man, really appreciate you coming on the show. And thank you for all you're doing to help the bedlessness problem in the United States. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate your time. And thank you listeners, for joining in.